What we're working on today is a 74½ BGT here. It's in its late stages of restoration, and the owner sent it out to me to get a few jobs done on it. So where we're going to start is the carburetors. He had actually already taken these carburetors off and sent them off to somebody out of state. I don't remember where he sent them to, and he didn't tell me who it was. But after getting them rebuilt, he put them on, could never get it running right. He just said it chugs, doesn't run right. So that's our starting point. Right now there's no battery in it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the battery in it and take the air cleaners off and then try to start it and see what it does. All right, so let's see what happens. We have no fuel pump ticking whatsoever. Let's make sure it cranks. All right, it cranks fine. So since we didn't hear the fuel pump running, and there's no fuel in here, we can assume that the fuel pump either has no power to it or is stock or is just bad, because the car has been sitting now, I know, for more than a year since the last time he ran it. So we'll have to take a look at that, but I can't just put it up in the air. And that's one of the things I'd really like to do with this thing, is put it in the air, because he actually bought this off of somebody else as a half-done project. And then when he got it, he wasn't happy with the paint and then went and had it repainted. So I have no idea how much metalwork was done to it or what the quality of the metalwork was. And that's one thing we want to look at. But I do know as a possible clue to how much metalwork and the quality of it is the bottom of the doors were fixed and there's no drain holes in the bottoms of the doors anymore. And that was one thing he wanted me to try to correct while we have it. So that's one clue as to the possibility of what you might find underneath. Now, if you haven't already noticed, this thing has air conditioning on it. Whether the system's charged or not, or it even work, I have no clue at this point. And he hasn't actually asked me about that to this point either. You can see here some wiring work has been done here, some taped up wires, and this is the white circuit, so this would be the fuel pump and ignition. And right now the alternator is actually unhooked. So we'll see what we get into electrical wise. Other than that, I noticed like none of this stuff's hooked up correctly. Someone's run a new line here from the separation tank up to here, but then they connected the separation tank directly to the carburetor vents rather than hooking this into the charcoal canister and then this into the charcoal canister. And that is definitely not how you want that hooked up. So we will rectify that while we're in here. So now we got this thing rotated back onto the lift here. I've taken the fuel pump out, cleaned the points, and now fuel pump's working just fine. Initially I had a couple little leaks, got those solved, and out of curiosity I went ahead and cranked it a little bit, got it to fire initially, and then that's when I remembered, hey, dummy, turn the camera on. So let's start this thing up. He said this thing was chugging and just did not run right. Obviously, it's not hitting on all four, like a timing problem, something like that, but I think I actually know what it is before we even go any further. Yes, the exhaust was knocked off this thing when he put it onto the trailer. We'll get to that later, because it's a good example of how not to put an exhaust system on a car. So now he did have new wires and plugs and cap and rotor and all that stuff put on this thing. at some point before it got to me. Now, let's start with the basics here. Since it's all new stuff, let's make sure they get the wires on right. So we got 1, it should be 3, 4, 2, and this one's going to number 2. This is 4, so we got 2 and 3 are swapped. That should help it a whole lot. Let's try it now. It's way loud, but hey, running a whole lot better now. Now we can get it up in the air and take a look at that exhaust system. So now we got it up in the air, let's take a quick look underneath of it. Now, let's look at the rust first, because like I said, the bottom of the doors have been replaced, so we don't know what kind of rust was in this car. But he did tell me this car came from a southern state, which generally you don't see much rust in the southern states, unlike the Rust Belt here where we are. And it could have just been that the top door seals were trashed and it sat outside for a little while and got water in the bottom of the doors that then rusted them out. But when you get underneath here and you start looking, you know, these all look good here, except we got a little bit of a hole right here, but it's not that big. And we got a little bit of rust right in here. A little bit of hole here, and same thing with the other side. Got right here, a little rust right here. But those are really small holes. And like I said, in Ohio, we consider that like, that's almost a completely rust-free car when you see just that little bit. But for a southern state, that is more of what you'd expect to see, especially when you come back here and you look, these areas here. This looks super solid, and it's hard to pick up on camera here because of the lighting, but it all looks like factory spot welds. Doesn't look like it's had rockers put in it. So this side's just as clean. So this was a really solid car, just had some minimal bits of rust in it. And like I said, it probably just had the top door seals were just trashed, because that's something else that can happen in drier states here, is all that stuff just rots out because of this heat in those states. But now let's look at the exhaust system here. This has had a new downpipe put on it and all new like sport system. But if you see, we get this thing up, this thing's hanging way, way too low. And he had originally told me, look, it hangs too low, can you put a middle hanger on it here? Problem is, we put a middle hanger on here, that's not gonna fix the problem, because this area here needs to be bent differently in order to fit this car. So this system probably is actually made for a chrome bumper car, not a rubber bumper car. And yes, it does make a difference, because it will bend down a little bit further here and then up more back here on a rubber bumper car than a chrome bumper car. But you can make those bends, tweak it, and make them fit. So that's one thing we are going to be doing here. I've already talked to him about this. So I'm going to be taking this thing completely off, taking it apart here, getting this pushed back up, tucked in where it's supposed to be, because this got pulled down to make it all fit. Then we'll get this mounted to where it's sitting at the height it's supposed to, and then figure out what we need to do to make the bends here and there work so that it all fits the rest of the way out. So now I got this exhaust system off the car and I got it apart to where I can slip it together and work with it. And now I'm going to show you just how poorly this thing actually fits the car. And basically, as bad as it was installed, that's the only way you could possibly get it on the car. So here's the system. And this is why I say it's probably a chrome bumper system, but I don't even think it'll fit a chrome bumper car really well. Okay, where we're up here, well, first of all, let's look at this. If we get the length about right, so it's about right here, the length would be just about right to the bumper, but look where the hanger is here. It's at least 2 inches too far back. Now, we could bring it forward and cut some off of the head pipe here. But then by the time we get the muffler sitting where we want it to and get it angled up where it wants to be, then it's going to be just far enough back here. There's a potential the exhaust could melt the edge of the bumper here. I have seen that before. So we don't want to take any length out of it. Now, look at this here. This thing is a good 3 inches too low in order to work. That's why I said this has to be bent more on a rubber bumper car than a chrome bumper car, because the axle here sits 1.5 inches lower. And it needs to clear or just touch while it's up like this on the lift in order to have as much ground clearance as we can when it's on the ground. The axle will move up when it's sitting at right height. But we got a lot more problems than just that. Now I am making the assumption that this needs to be level to hook up to there for the hanger. But now look at the length of the pipe. If we were to get this to actually hook onto here, look where we're at. We're clear over here. In order to get it over here where we need it, the front pipe here is way off. The bend on that is not even close. We'd have to put a bit of an elbow there to have any chance of it actually hooking up to the front pipe. So now you could say, oh, well, you can just make this bend over here, right? Well, no. It's supposed to sit in this pocket right here. Now the height here can vary a little bit depending on the exhaust system, but this is where it's supposed to be. Okay, now the other thing we can look at is maybe they got this welded on wrong or in the wrong place or something, right? So we can look at what if we were to, this way, turn this thing so that the bend takes it better that way. Well, then that puts this almost 90 degrees, not quite, but still leaves us about 3 inches short of getting to where the hanger's at. Now, if we have it straight like they've got it welded, it actually puts us about 4.5 inches away from the hanger. So that is not very good. Of course, then it puts us the end of the pipe right into the exhaust housing, or the rear end housing. So we need this thing to come over. This needs to be moved up, and we got to put a bend here in order to get this thing to even come close to working. So while I contemplate what I'm going to do with the exhaust system, I'm going to put that on hold and come up and work on the carburetors first. When I had it running here, I was checking a few things, and the airflow between the carbs is quite a bit different. And the jets are not, the front one is like as far down as they go, completely bottomed out, which tells me obviously things aren't the way they're supposed to be. So I'm going to end up stripping these carbs off, probably cleaning them a little bit because the car has been sitting for a little while, and just checking all the normal, all the basics. But that is for the next video.